Welcome. I am so looking forward to this conversation. This is Warren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, and I am talking today with Carmen Hoxie. We're going to be talking about some of the changes that she's made pretty quickly within her firm and the impact that it's had. So, Carmen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And please share a little bit about what you do and how you serve your clients.
Got it. Well, I'm a CPA. I'm a solo tax practitioner. So I've had my own firm for about 18 years. Prior to that, I had about 13 years at PricewaterhouseCoopers, a few on the audit side, and then the remaining on the tax side. And then about 4 years in private industry in a tax department there. So, and kind of the through line through all of my career has been working with small businesses and individuals. And so that's what I primarily focus on in my tax practice today.
And one of the things I've seen is that when you go from your professional development, where you start out working for somebody else and then you become a business or firm owner, there's some things that need to be adjusted along the way in order for you to have a firm that's actually sustainable and suits your life. So, were there any maybe frustrations that you had before we started working together, or things that you felt like, I just can't keep on doing it like this? There's got to be a better way.
Yeah, I had grown my firm over the years to be at maximum capacity with clients, or maybe even a little bit beyond that. And actually, all of that was through word of mouth or referrals from a lot of financial advisors. And so the clients that were coming to me were really great clients, interesting, high quality clients that had some complex tax situations. And so, really, the type of client that I enjoy working with and feel like I can serve. I think what the frustration I experienced was that when I first started my practice, I didn't necessarily know how to price my services. I quoted a fixed fee, but it was really still kind of based on about how much time I thought I would spend on that particular client and at just sort of an hourly rate I came up with. I didn't necessarily have a real strategy for how I developed that particular hourly rate, but I knew I couldn't probably charge what I used to charge when I was, say, working at PricewaterhouseCoopers for an hourly rate. So I sort of started with that strategy, and as time went on, I became to realize that I probably am underpriced for what the market rates would be. And I became a little bit frustrated in how do I raise the rates on these clients I've had for so many years that I really like and not risk losing them. And I kind of started a strategy of increasing them 3 to 5% a year. But of course, even years of doing that isn't wasn't going to get me up to where maybe more market rates were for the types of services that I provided. And so at some point, then you kind of feel like you're giving away some services for free, and that's somewhat frustrating, even if you do like your clients. So I kind of came to that point in time where I felt like I needed to do something, but I wasn't quite sure how to do that or how to price or how to maybe bundle my services into some packages that made more sense for the different types of clients I had.
And one of the things that I'm hearing, and I just want to acknowledge the fact that you grew your firm from word of mouth and referrals where you got really good quality clients. Kudos to you. It says something about the quality of
Thank
work
you.
that you offer and how client-centered your firm is. And I think that some of the things that you're mentioning as far as not knowing how to price your services, even though you had a fixed fee, you were still basing it on time and doing those minimal 3 to 5% yearly increases is pretty traditional for firm owners, but it still is more like symptom management instead of actually resolving the issue. So, how long were you maybe thinking about actually getting all your clients, including the legacy clients, up to newer, higher rates before you actually started to do something?
Honestly, probably several years, um, because I kind of had the sense that I was underpriced. I even had some clients actually tell me that I was underpriced. And I had experiences where I would have an intro call with a potential client. I would quote them a fee kind of over that call for what I would do for my for the tax return and also kind of this consulting throughout the year. And in some cases, when I would receive the return from them or information from their prior year, some of those clients would include with that what they paid in the prior year. So I could see that the fee I quoted them was in some cases the same or maybe even less than what they were paying their former CPA. And what they had indicated to me on their intro call was their frustration with their former CPA was maybe something like lack of communication or responsiveness, not getting the type of advice that they were really looking for. And I knew that was kind of what I was striving to do. And so I just knew my fee was probably less than where it should be at the time. So
Okay, so part of what I'm really picking up here is the quality was there. That part was never an issue, but it was more where figuring out how to be able to give those prices that were higher. What was there maybe some fear involved with that also of quoting a higher price, Carmen?
definitely. So, I mean, I think that's why it took me years to implement this whole strategy is that that was my biggest fear is that I would lose these clients. And as I mentioned, I liked my clients and I enjoyed working with them and I didn't really want to lose them. I just wanted to be paid more of a fair value for what I was doing and to be able to be a little more proactive in planning too. So that was one area where I realized that um, by charging separately for tax planning, that sometimes clients would not reach out to me for a special project, let's say. So maybe those consulting things throughout the year, emails, phone calls, and so on, they were kind of included in that original price or quote that I gave them, but not necessarily a larger research-oriented project or a full-blown tax projection. Those things I did charge extra for, which probably also I underpriced those too, to be honest. But I felt like I, in some ways, was hesitant to suggest something like that because I didn't want my clients to think I was just suggesting it so I could get some more fees out of the
Mhm,
deal. I
mhm.
wanted now I feel like I can actually be more proactive with those clients and suggest it knowing that maybe this is all included in my new package. So,
And one more thing before I kind of shift away from this, because I think it's really important what you're talking about, is are there times that you did maybe some work for clients without compensation or possibly even gave them a lower invoice than what really reflected the amount of work that you did for them?
many times. And that was really right, part
Mhm.
of this whole process of coming to this conclusion that um, I I was hesitant, as I mentioned, to bill for a lot of things extra because I didn't know how the client would react to that, but I knew they needed this particular service, and so I provided it. And so, yes, I did. In many cases, either not bill at all or probably bill for, um, in reality, much less than what maybe the time was that I spent on it or the value of the services that I provided. So, definitely.
Now, you had awareness of the problem that you were undercharging, you were delivering a high quality service. Some clients even told you that your fees were too low, or when you did the comparison, you saw that you were charging less for the level of services you were delivering. So, what contributed to you maybe moving forward with wanting to get coaching to be able to help with that? Was it something that sparked that? And did you have any hesitations with actually moving in that direction?
Yes. So I happened to be on a webinar and I heard you speak, and something kind of clicked because I realized that what you were talking about was the exact same situation that I was in. And I know there are a lot of consultants out there, but I think you kind of specialize in this particular area where a lot of people like me, accountants, CPAs, we're kind of hesitant. We're conservative people by nature. We don't want to rock the boat too much, so we're a little bit shy to make large changes. So you really could speak to me, and I got the sense that this is what you did and that you worked with a lot of people in this particular area. And so that really sparked my interest. And then um, honestly, I think I also downloaded a book that you had at one point. It was like a 40-page book, and I read through that. And I thought this all makes sense. And then I saw that I could do a 15-minute strategy session with you, kind of at no cost. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose, right? I should at least try that. And I think the hesitancy maybe for me in working with a consultant or a coach was just that I kind of felt like maybe it was just me. So I'm a very small business. Maybe my business type is too small to work with a consultant. I kind of had that particular fear or thought. And then I also thought, well, maybe I can't really justify that cost because I am a small business. So I definitely had some hesitations, but as I mentioned watching your video, reading the book, talking about this during our strategy session. Everything kind of came together and made me realize that I would advise another business owner to do the same type of thing. So I need to kind of take some of my own advice as well and utilize this opportunity to work with a really great coach that can kind of help me get to this next level with my firm.
One of the things that so I appreciate you actually taking action instead of continuing to postpone it. And one of the things I do see as a big block for a lot of firm owners that are small, solo to maybe five on payroll is that when they're moving down in this direction and considering working with a coach, the investment is sometimes larger than they've ever made in anything else. So how long did it take you to recoup the investment of our work together?
That's a great question because in our strategy session, I remember you saying you'll be able to recoup this fee within the first, I don't remember if you said
90
30 or
days.
90 days. Um, and you were right. I moved pretty quickly in my transition process because I think I was mentally far enough down the path that I was kind of ready to make that move. I just wasn't quite sure how to do it. And so I did. Within 3 months, I recouped my fee and probably multiply that by 4 or 5 times. So it was definitely worth my investment, even though at first, when you think about it, you're maybe have some hesitancy. It definitely was worth my time and effort, and in more ways than I even realized at the time. So.
And one of the things we were just chatting about before we started this conversation was about efficiency. So you've been able to recoup your fee. You've been able to get several times over on that. How about efficiency? How has that shifted as well?
That has been one of the great surprises of this consulting, coaching partnership because I kind of went into it with the idea that you could help me get to this package model and help me with my pricing, but I didn't quite know that you were going to be able to help me in so many other ways as well. And so efficiency is one of the areas that I feel like you've helped bring up some new technology that maybe I wasn't aware of, or maybe I was aware of, but was there again a little bit hesitant to try because I didn't want to invest a lot of my time if it really wasn't going to work. And so you were a very good resource to help me know which applications might really work for my particular issue or my particular size of practice. And so just a quick example, and not that it's a real huge item, but it actually has turned out to be huge for me, was the Calendly app. So I had used it for other people. I kind of had it in the back of my mind. Maybe I wanted to try that. And in working with you, you were able to say, yeah, that works really great. It's very easy to use. You can kind of customize it for your situation. And so I started that for this last busy season. And that was a huge time saver for me because I used to send emails with every return to say, here's my list of 5 options for over the next 5 days, what I have available in time. And for each client, I would have to look at my calendar because it would change between these emails for clients. And then they would respond back, and it would be a little bit of a back and forth until the point where then we'd get our time set, and then I would send a Zoom invite. And now I just have my event type set up and I can put a link in my email and the client can pick from what time might work best for them. And the Zoom invite is already set up. So that's there again, may not seem like a big thing, but when you're in the heat of busy season and every second counts, that was really huge for me this last busy season. So things like that have been very beneficial as well. And in addition to maybe the efficiency part, also kind of helping me learn that I can set my own boundaries too with clients, which is something that I guess I never really thought of my business, my practice in that particular way that I have the ability to set those boundaries. I guess I've just been very client focused and have always um, felt like I needed to respond at any time of any day when a client sends me an email, let's say, or work all hours to try to make things happen. And you've helped me kind of realize that boundary setting is a part of being a good business owner. And I'm still working on that one, but I think I'm making progress.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
that's been good.
And I think progress is the word. But also the fact that you're vested in making some changes, you are actually implementing at rapid speed, compared to when you were still thinking about it and trying to figure it out on your own.
Definitely.
Any changes? Okay, we touched on the money part. Any changes in your revenue or client quality because we made the shift out of value pricing, or any other things that kind of came up that you were not really expecting?
Definitely. So the revenue piece I kind of alluded to, I've been able
Mhm.
to, on average, raise my rates by about 60% of over what they previously were. So I have definitely realized that as a nice advantage to this process. Um, for the most part, my retention rate was really good, higher than I expected, actually. So I retained approximately 90% of my client base. And the ones that are in my current client base, I feel really good about because they are those high quality, easy to work with, great clients that are looking for tax advice and looking for the types of services that I enjoy providing as well. So um, that has been great. And another kind of side benefit to it is that I also implemented billing prior to busy season. And that's kind of a twofold one because there again, it's a great benefit to sort of be paid up front for all of your services. So that was a new shift that I had never experienced before. I typically would bill right after I finished the return. So, kind of as a secondary benefit of that, that also pulled out a lot of time from my busy season that I would spend preparing an invoice and sending it out. That all got shifted into sort of the January timeframe for me versus being in the heat of busy season in that March and April timeframe. And so there again, efficiency wise, that was great. And it just took that whole headache of billing kind of off of my plate during that time frame and allowed me to focus more on the actual tax return preparation and then also planning and strategy process.
I think that we hear about value pricing and that there's this shift over to getting prepaid for your services and instead of getting paid in arrears. And it's usually talked about with bookkeeping and traditional accounting firms, but not that much with tax work. So because you made the shift to get prepaid before you actually started doing the tax work, what did you notice as far as differences with your cash flow and anything else that, or maybe even some boundary setting?
Yeah, there again, because I really did receive almost all of my fees kind of in that January into February timeframe, that of course my cash flow shifted from sort of being in the March, April, May, June timeframe, kind of into that January, February timeframe, which is great for being able to sort of plan and budget for the year, and give you some flexibility to feel like you can maybe make some additional investments, whether it's in additional software for tax planning or other investments in the actual firm itself that can maybe benefit both me and my clients. So it gives me that flexibility a little bit more than what I had previously, definitely.
And one of the things that I remember you telling me during one of our group coaching meetings is that your clients were actually very positive in their response to you moving over to packages.
Yes, that was a surprise because, as I mentioned, this was
Hmm.
a big fear of mine that I would lose clients. And I had a lot of really positive feedback when I sent out my transition emails. Many clients responded back to me saying, "This sounds great. I love this new package. I'm excited to use some of these benefits that maybe I kind of outlined in the package." And so that was quite a surprise to me. And then, to be honest, I did also have some feedback from some clients saying, is there a less expensive package that you have for me? And that was also an interesting surprise because in many cases, I would say, yes, I do have a more basic package that only includes the tax return preparation and nothing else. And then I would explain that the reason I kind of thought they would fit into sort of my mid-level, what I call strategic package, is that they would enjoy the ability to be able to reach out through the year and ask questions and maybe do a mid-year or year-end tax planning meeting and strategy session. And these were things that they either did utilize in the past, and once again, I probably didn't actually charge them for, or something that maybe they didn't utilize but thought might be interesting. So even some of those clients who reached out kind of asking for a lower rate ended up still kind of accepting the rate that I had initially quoted them and the package level that I quoted because once I explained it, they realized, yeah, that sounds great. I really do want that extra consulting or the ability to just reach out to you throughout the year and ask a question or maybe do some more in-depth planning as the year goes along. So that was also a surprise to me. As I mentioned, I was nervous to send out those emails. I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go, but in a lot of cases, I did have a lot of nice feedback, positive feedback that I just wasn't anticipating, and that has been great kind of moving forward. So.
Hmm. And you took the rip the Band-Aid off approach. So you sent everything out by email informing your clients instead of having individual conversations. And when clients had questions, that's when maybe you had a conversation with them. Is there anything else that you see has shifted maybe with your quoting process as far as the way that you're operating your firm now?
Yes. So now my quoting process with new clients is utilizing these packages and being able to describe those packages. And you've helped me be able to kind of develop a script for that, so to speak, and how to describe the packages in ways that measure the outcome for the client and what they might be looking for versus just the work that I'm doing, which maybe was my previous way of describing how I worked. And so that's been very helpful. Um, and I've been able to um, utilize the new rates as well. And so actually before I really did the rip the Band-Aid off, sending out the emails to my current clients, last year, prior to that process, when I did have a new client conversation, I kind of tested the waters a bit and tried out this whole conversation about packages and fees related to each of those packages. And what I found is I had really good reception with new clients. And of course, it's easier to talk to new clients than existing clients because they don't have that history with you. They don't know what your fees have been all of these years, and they're just coming at it with a new perspective. And so that gave me a little bit of confidence that my packages made sense and that actually my fees made sense too, because I didn't get pushback from these new clients about, oh, your fee seems too high. In fact, it was quite the opposite, that they said, that sounds great. So
Mhm.
um, being able to try kind of test the waters with potential new clients was really helpful for me and gave me that confidence to say, okay, I can just try to sort of use this rip the band-aid off approach and send out these transition emails to all of my clients with sort of my new package strategy and pricing strategy.
And now that we've actually implemented the packages, this is your first tax season with packages. It's an evolution. There's things that worked well. There's things where we realized there was a gap that needed to be adjusted or look at how to approach it. So what do you feel is the next step in the evolution in fine-tuning your system?
Well, as I indicated, I feel like I am still a work in progress on all of this. I feel like I've made great strides, and a lot of that is thanks to your help through this process. So that has been great. But I feel like I will have some additional things now to continue to work on in the future. And I think one of the issues that kind of came up for me is because I was worried about losing clients in my whole transition to package process. I sort of front loaded some new clients along the way and really started accepting new clients. And I've kind of gone through waves somewhat over the years of accepting new clients and then maybe pulling back a little bit and accepting and pulling back, um, because sometimes I would just get too high in terms of capacity. But in anticipation of maybe losing some clients in this transition process, I ramped up my acceptance of new clients. And what I found is that I didn't necessarily work less this particular busy season because I still had about the same amount of work. So it's kind of the good news, bad news. I really didn't lose nearly as many clients as in my mind I thought I might lose. And I picked up a lot of new clients that are really high quality, great clients that I'm excited to work with as well. So on a go forward basis, now I kind of need to assess my current client list again
Mhm.
and try to figure out how what is my ideal client? How do I want to make sure that those are the clients that I'm working with? And are there ways that either maybe I can gain some more efficiencies through additional technology? Do I need to consider maybe adding some help? Or do I need to maybe just refine my client list a bit? So I've got some work to do, definitely. Like I mentioned, it's a work in progress. But now I feel like I'm going into this next season with the confidence that I've been through kind of the big parts and it went well. And now things from this point on, those changes will probably be somewhat smaller and a little bit easier to deal with. And now I know I can do it.
And just to kind of recap, because you threw a lot of information out there, you added on some new clients. Was it about 30 new clients that you added on?
Yes,
Okay. So
exactly.
you added on a good amount of clients, 30 new clients. You thought you were going to lose, everybody was going to be running for another tax firm when we raised your rates, but you actually had
Yeah.
90% retention rate and you
Hmm.
increased the rates on average by about 60%. So you're now in a sweet spot. This is what I call a problem of luxury, Carmen, where
Yes.
you have too much of a good thing,
Yeah, right.
and now you have to figure out how to recalibrate.
Right, right. I have to be hesitant in complaining too much, but just physically getting all the work done as a solo practitioner is where my struggle will be this year in
Mhm.
terms of planning for next year. So
And anything as far as the mindset that's shifted as you've been going through this process?
definitely. Well, I've kind of alluded to it a couple times by saying the
Mhm.
word confident. I think I've gained a lot of confidence in myself in terms of running my actual business. So, whereas over the years, in some ways, I've felt like my business has controlled me, that now I am in control of my business. And that has been a really great mind shift and gives me kind of a whole new perspective and that confidence that I can make changes and I can kind of set the tone for what I want my practice to look like, the types of clients that I work with and the types of services that I provide, that I can be more in control of that now. And that's a pretty great feeling. So that has
Mhm.
been a definite mindset shift for me.
It's a little bit of a change from what I see usually as a self-employed mindset, where you're
Mhm.
still doing this to replace your business, your job, your W-2 check with your own paycheck. And
Mhm.
now you're operating even as a solo business owner, as a CEO of your firm, where you're making some very strategic decisions and you're okay with them, realizing that some people might love them and they're going to move forward with you, and others might decide to move on. So you're not
Exactly.
operating from a place of fear any longer.
Exactly. Right. And I've realized that there may be a client that is a really great fit for me, and there might be clients who maybe don't want the level of service that I provide, and that's okay too. So,
And I know that we just came out of a tax deadline, so there's an adjustment. Any changes, though, that you've noticed as far as how maybe your business is operating or the impact it has on your life also, because it's this ebb and flow where it's not like one's in a silo and the other one is in a different silo. You don't just shut down your computer at 5 p.m. any longer and clock out. So
right.
what have you noticed as far as things where, wow, that was something I didn't expect to happen, or I see that I'm approaching this differently?
I think it's really the approaching it differently aspect because I did have a pretty busy season still, as mentioned, but now I know that I can make those changes that I want to kind of keep honing my business to be exactly what I'd like it to be. And I think also in talking with you, and also in our group sessions, realizing that I can set those boundaries as well, which I think I have a new perspective on that. Sort of in busy season, it's a little bit different because it's busy season and you have to kind of work around the clock to get everything done. But the rest of the year doesn't necessarily have to feel like busy season at all times. So I can set boundaries as a business owner, and I can schedule meetings versus trying to get something accomplished over the phone with a person or right away. And so I think I've seen that there again, it's really kind of a mindset shift that on a go forward basis now, I am the CEO or CFO, either one of my own business. And so I can kind of make those rules for myself. And so I think that's given me that confidence there again to do that on a go
Mhm.
forward basis.
One of the things you mentioned, and I'd like to just go into it a little bit more, is the group sessions. It's
Mhm.
not just about one-on-one conversations, but it's
Exactly.
about other firm owners who are going through a similar path as you, meeting and having conversations. How has that experience been for you?
That has been great. And that wasn't necessarily something that I anticipated going into this process. And once we had our strategy session, you had described it somewhat, but in terms of initially setting up a strategy session, I was just looking for that one-on-one help. And so these group sessions have just been an added benefit that have been very valuable to me. What I find and the feeling that you get from these sessions is that you're not alone. So that's one thing as a solo tax practitioner. I don't have a lot of peers, let's say in my immediate market area that I can bounce things off of. They might be competitors and people are a little bit close to the vest with what they would share. But in these group meetings, it's a group of like individuals, other tax practitioners, some with small businesses, other accounting, bookkeeping service businesses, and we're kind of all in the same same boat, so to speak,
Mhm.
and going through the same struggles or issues at the same time, and kind of shifting our mindset to this thinking about our businesses. And so that has been very valuable to listen to what their experiences are and the feedback that they get from their experiences and sometimes being able to contribute to that feedback. But learning from them has been just as valuable as thinking about my own issues or things that I would like to resolve.
And I appreciate you sharing about that. Is there anything else that you would like to mention that we haven't touched on, Carmen?
Pretty well wraps it up. I guess my overall thought is if you happen to be thinking about making a change, definitely do it. You're going to be so happy after you do it. And if you're like probably all of the rest of us that have been working with you, Lauren, we've all been thinking it about a long time. We just have had a really hard time of making it happen.
Mhm.
And working with you has been really valuable in helping to actually make the action happen.
Thank you. And I am so honored to be part of your inner circle. If somebody was inspired by what you shared and wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Sure, if they want to email me, that would, and my email is carmen.hoxie@cpa.com. So that's KARMEN dot HOXIE at CPA.com.
Excellent. Carmen, thank you for the generous conversation and sharing of your experience. I really appreciate that. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solutions, showing firm owners how to double their income working half the time.